Hello, my name's Eddie Clark from Buckinghamshire Bespoke Flooring, and today I'm going to show you how to remove a damaged board from a full contact stick down wood flooring. Now what we've got here is an engineered board. It's a rustic oak engineered board, 189mm wide, 21mm thick with a 6mm wear layer, and what's happened is something's been dropped on it. I don't know if you can see, but there's been a huge gouge and a big split that's appeared in the veneer, the 6mm veneer on top of the board. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut that out and we're going to replace it with a nice pretty new board. Okay, so the tools that I'm going to use today, I don't know if you can see them. I've got an electric circular saw, I've got a pry bar for prying up the floor, I've got a hammer, 3 chisels, 1 sharp one and 2 blunt ones, some PVA glue, a rubber mallet, obviously dust mask and goggles for safety, and then I've got a bulk gun for applying new glue underneath the floor. And the glue that I'm going to be using today is Sikabond T2, which in my opinion is probably the best glue on the market. This floor has been stuck down with Sika T54, which is a full contact adhesive, which is put on with a trowel, but obviously it's quite difficult to trowel a small area like this, so we're going to re-glue this down with the T2, which you put down in what we call liquid battens, which I'll show you later. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the circular saw, which I'll set the depth on to the depth of the board, and I'm going to cut down the length of the board on both sides. So as you can see now, I cut all the way along the outside of the board so it's jointed up. I've just got to take a chisel to the corners now, because obviously a circular saw being round won't cut right into the corner. So I'm going to take a chisel and just chop out the corners, and then we're ready to start prying the middle of the board out. That's chopped out. Okay, so we've cut all around the edges, chopped it out with the chisel, and what I've also done is I've put a saw cut across the middle of the board and chopped the edges of that out with the chisel, because what we don't want to be doing is when we start prying up this centre section, which is still glued to the floor, we don't want to damage any of the boards around it. So if we start in the centre here, we know that we won't pry off any of the boards around it that we could possibly damage. Okay, so I'm going to start prying it up now. Tools I'm going to use are a chisel, a hammer and a pry bar. What I'm going to do is get started with the chisel, just to try and get in there. You can hear that noise, that means the top bit of the board is starting to come up. see what's happened there is the top bit of the wood's come off. This is what often happens with engineered floor, is because it's made up of layers of plywood, it comes up in layers. So I'm going to chop through the layers and keep going, and just try to be as careful as I can to make sure that I don't damage anything around it. Now, I'm not sure how well you can see this, but what I've got here is I've managed to hammer a chisel underneath the bit of the floor that's left. This is where the pry bar comes in really handy, because I can ram it underneath it, just start peeling up the floor. And once you've got a bit where you can see it, you can start using the chisel to chop through the fibres of the glue, which will help it come up easier.
Starting to bring the phone over.
As you can see now, we're starting to get down to the glue below and down to the bottom of the board, which is what we want to do. Okay, now as you can see, the centre of the board has been completely peeled up, and all that I'm left now is 10, 12, 15 mil around the edges where the tongues and grooves are. Now, don't be worried if this takes an awfully long time. Chopping this middle section out, because it's stuck to the floor and it tends to come out in bits that look like that. Now, this one wasn't too bad, it took about 15 minutes, but I've known it to take half an hour, 40 minutes at times, so you've just got to stick with it. So now we're starting to unpick the edges, and you can see, luckily for me, the floor that I'm doing has a 6mm tongue and groove. So what I've done is I've managed to, and if you can see, I've managed to get a 6mm chisel into the groove, and I'm using that almost as a lever as I go down to lever out the tongue from within the groove. I don't know how well you can see this, but as I say, I've got this chisel in, and now that I've got the chisel in, it's prying out that tongue and it's starting to come out. I'll show you me doing it, but unfortunately I can't do it with one hand, and I've got to hold the camera. Okay, so I've unpicked all the sides, and I'm basically left with a hole, plank shaped hole, where the plank came out. And what I've also done is scrape them as much as I can of the old glue residue off as well, so that we make sure we get a decent bond when we put it in. Okay, right, so the next thing is to prepare our board that's going to drop in, and this is the board. And what I've done, if you can see on this side, is I've taken the bottom of the groove off one end, and I've taken the bottom of the groove off on the side, and I've completely cut the tongue off on the other side, but left the tongue, completely cut the tongue off on the end, but left the tongue on the side. Okay, we're at the stage now where we're ready to put the board back in. So the first thing, we take our Sika T2 from the bolt gun, and we put regular lines of glue every 6 inches or so down where the board's going to go. And if you're worried about how much to put in, more lines are always better than less. You want to make sure this stays put. Okay, so we've got the Sika T2 on the floor. Then we want PVA glue along the tongue of the board that's already in, and in the groove.
Alright, mate. David,
PVA on top of the groove and the header, and the same on everything we're sticking in. So we know that when this goes in, it's going to stay put. Okay, so next thing, you want to get the groove of the board you're putting in and locate it just so it's just sitting into the groove of the board that you're going to put it into. Sometimes that takes a little bit of wiggling and wriggling just to get it in the right position. And the next thing, take your mallet and give it a tap till it goes in. And then, last bit, hammer down hard to push that down into the groove. And you have to be quite forceful with that because it's going into quite a tight fit. And there you have it, one board replaced, good as new, no one will ever know.